Okay guys, so we've done our VLOOKUP, as you can see. So now I've got my sheet. I've hidden the other sheets to just make everything clear here. So now I've pulled in this data. You'll see I pulled in your homework assignment too in the last task or video that you've done. I've masked how to do it because I do want you to try to do that on your own and come to me with questions if you're still not understanding the VLOOKUP function. But for right now, I've populated all the data. So now we want to do some cross-tabular analysis of this data because we want to find out how our students performed in the test, not only individually, but we want to do it by our different demographics, by our CCGPS standards, because we want to pull some valuable information to understand how our students did. So to start that off, we're going to use something called a pivot table. What we're going to do is we're going to select the entire sheet by clicking on the corner to get all our values, and we're going to go to the very top of our Excel menu, and we're going to select the Data tab. That's the Data item in the top of the Excel menu if you can't see it on this video. And we're going to go to Pivot Table. From here, you're going to hit OK. And it's going to give us an area that we can start playing with to create our pivot table. So the first thing we want to think about is, what are we gathering info on? The first thing I said is we want to know how our individual students perform. So I want to take this name up from this little table, and I want to either pull it into the column labels, which will give me a cross-tabular column, or we normally like our verticals, so we're going to pull it into our row data. So this is going to say I want to pull information on these students. I want to do some summations or averages and things on some different data sets from this key. So now we said we wanted to know what our students scored. So we want to know how many points were awarded to the students. So I'm actually going to pull that in the values area because that's where I want to do my calculation. So right now you'll see everyone got a 19. We know that's not true. That's not, everyone didn't get 100% on this. You'll see that it's actually doing a count. That's a count of the number of questions or the number of different columns were in that point. So we see that every student completed every question. There's a value, so that's good. Well, we want to change that. So we want to click on this little I, and you'll see we can do some different tabulations or calculations on it. So we want to do a sum because we want to know the sum of their points. So now we know the sum of the points. I'm also going to pull in the possible points into this values and make that a sum too, because perhaps our students had different possible points if we did different testing formats. So then if we wanted to, we can do an equal sign here. We can do the possible points divided by the sum of points. I can copy that down. I can also select all these columns and go to my percentage and format it nicely. Now if I wanted to, I can go ahead and select all of this, copy it, and put it in another sheet. So I can see how my students did across the board. Now that's not telling me too much. Maybe it's telling me the individual student, but I want more. So I'm going to click on this colored area and you'll see this chart pops up again. Let's say I didn't want to know how they did individually, so I'm going to take this names out. Let's say, and I'm going to clear up this formula so it's nice and clean. Let's say I wanted to know by sex how my students perform. So I'm going to pull that into the row. So now I have how my females performed, and we need those possible points because obviously I have more females that took the test, so I need to know what that scale is to see how they, percentage-wise, they performed. I can swap my values and my column with my column and row, and you can see I can get the same results. I'm just getting them in a different format. I prefer to see them in a vertical list. As you can see, I love that vertical lookup function. Now I can also pull in other items. So let's say I wanted to pull in my CCGPS standard in this row too. So you can see I have female by standard and male by standard and doing some summations. Let's say I wanted to change that up and change the order of it. So I'm going to swap these two. And you can see that I can change the ordering of that, and it changed the way the table looked. I can also click on the I and do some custom summations if I wanted to. It doesn't really make sense at this point, but there are points where you might want to add additional sums. Let's say I pulled in free and reduced lunch after. and I wanted to do summations, or I didn't want to do some. So let's say, pull that out. Let's say I didn't want to do the sum at the CCGPS standard. I can click on that I and say none. I don't want to do a sum there. And it gets rid of it. I could also say, let's do an average. So it does an average point total if I wanted that. Let's go back to the automatic sum. So now we have those sums back. Now we can filter the report too. Let's say I don't want to see all of these standards. What I can do is in the row labels, I can click on this. I can select the item I want to filter, which is the standards. And let's say I just want 2 of them. You can see I filter my report that way. Let's say I wanted to select them all again, and I wanted to filter by sex. You can do that too. So now I'm just getting male results. So this would make sense if I don't want to see these numbers repeated twice. Let's get rid of the summation here. So now I have a nice clean report. I can do that if I want. Let's say I want to make this prettier. So I'm going to get rid of this filter here. There's another way to do filter. So I'm going to get back to where I was. And let's say that I want to pull my report filter up here. So let's say I want to filter by sex up here. So now I have my nice CCGPS standards. I have in the point totals, I have the sex, and I have both males and females. So this is my total population by standard. Now the user of the report can say, hey, I just want to see females. And it, instead of filtering at this level, I'm filtering at the upper level of the report, or the top level. Which is useful. So what I want you guys to do now is I want you to play around with these, and as a homework assignment I want you to tell me something unique when you perform some data analysis about my class. Did my females perform better on domains? You know, answer questions like that. See if you could find something interesting that will help me assess and improve myself as a teacher. So I want you to play around with these pivot tables and see what you find in your own discovery. Thanks.